Hey audience, welcome to this webinar. Very important topic we are discussing today. Is the real estate in the metaverse for real? I don't have all the answers, but I have with me an amazing panel, which is going to help us answer these questions. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sharad Agarwal. I'm based in Dubai. I started the first digital agency in the Middle East back in 1996. So I'm 26 years in this space. I'm basically a Web 1 guy who got into Web 2. And now I'm on my journey to Web 3. I'm somewhere around Web 2.5, I guess. Unlike a Jack something who's already talking about Web 5, right? So yeah, so it's interesting times. And before I ask our panelists to introduce themselves, I just want to talk about why I thought this topic was relevant. There's a lot of talk about, the fact that last year, $500 million of sales happened in the metaverse in terms of real estate. It's likely to double this year. Projected growth rate is 31% from here on for the next 5-6 years. Brands like JP Morgan, PwC, HSBC, Samsung, and so many more have already started acquiring land in the sandbox, Decentraland, etc. And what are they planning to do, right? You buy the land and what do you build? And the answer is you can practically build anything. It's limited to your imagination. It could be a virtual e-commerce store. It could be a digital art gallery. It could be some educational institution. You could create play-to-earn games, totally limited by your imagination. So virtual real estate, in some sense, is like the physical real estate. And before you venture into that and before you start investing, just a little bit of a disclaimer, you got to do your own due diligence, right? So with that introduction, I'm going to request my panelists to introduce themselves to our audience. And I'm going to start with Thomas. Thomas, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shana, for inviting me. My name is Thomas Nasisonis. I'm a founder and CEO of Crypto House Capital. Crypto House Capital is investor and developer of virtual real estate. Our focus is on meta-real projects developing in decentralized virtual worlds. Like Decentraland and Sandbox. One of our newest projects is a residential skyscraper, which called Skylum. Skylum is open for investment as an NFT basis or SPV basis, and we do to launch a drop in a couple of weeks.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Caroline, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Absolute pleasure to be here. So I'm Caroline Hughes. I'm calling in from sunny London. For change, we have beautiful blue skies here. And I am CEO and co-founder of Lifeties. And Lifeties is the world's first fintech metaverse. So it's a virtual life simulator where you design the life you want on our platform, visualizing all of your life goals from leaving school through to retirement. And we show you how to finance it using a mix of traditional finance, so everything that we all understand, savings accounts, loans, mortgages, but also decentralized finance or DeFi and NFTs. So perhaps under Web 2, alongside the traditional way of saving to buy a real world apartment using fintech, now with Web 3, you can also save to buy metaverse real estate. So this conversation is going to be very, very interesting, I think.
Thank you, Caroline. Let's go to Boston. Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Lee. I'm based in Boston. Thank you for inviting me for this great event and time event. Okay, so I'm a CEO and founder of the Tech IPM. The Tech IPM is emerging technology innovation incubating and also a business strategy development company. So I have a 30 years experience in high-tech industry for every role. And particularly, I'm also additionally the New York State attorney and the US patent attorney. So I'm involving in the legal matter with the Metaverse and other like Web3 NFT and also working for the intellectual property development in Metaverse space. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Noah? Your audio.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nova Lorraine. I'm the founder of Rain Magazine and Raindrops NFT Art House. I've been in the fashion industry for about 20 years as a haute couture designer, and also am a licensed real estate agent. Not actively practicing, but I have a love and passion for real estate. So I've bought and sold many homes and have helped lease commercial properties as well. One of my first advisory roles was with the Metagame Hub DAO, which one of their tools is to help you find the most valuable real estate in the metaverse. And I have a project called Raindrops, which is launching the Lana Project NFTs. And Lana is a fictional character from a book that I'm writing. And Lana lives in Rain City, and Rain City will be a digital world within the metaverse. So the real estate topic on many levels is a very much of interest to me.
Thank you, Noah. Let's go to Hong Kong. Akina.
Hi, everybody. This is Akina Ho. I'm from Hong Kong. I am the head of innovation and digital transformation for the Great Eagle Group. It's a traditional real estate company. So we own the Langham Hotel, the Cordice Hotel, and the Easton Hotel, in case you don't know who we are. So we are a conglomerate. We do residential and commercial building too. And I'm also on the board of directors for Hong Kong Prop Tech Association. So we deal with a lot of prop tech. So this is a great forum for me, because I have a lot to say.
Thank you, Akina. Let's go to Watsal.
Hi everyone. Good evening from Delhi in India. Thanks, Sharath, for inviting me. Pleasure to be with this panel. My background is I'm actually a VC corporate lawyer, and we are currently amidst building a REIT for the metaverse. So I'm the founder of a company we called Recasa, and we're essentially evangelizing ownership for open metaverses through a decentralized and democratized REIT structure that we are creating, whereby we will be able to create NFTs, which will give you indirect fractional ownership over different open metaverse lands. And eventually the goal is to illustrate, with the help of other people in the industry, that these lands are also valuable and can be monetized. And the monetization from those properties would be circled back as currency to the NFT holders. So what we're trying to do with Recasa is actually create an NFT project which will be pegged against virtual assets. So that's a bit of a summary. Happy to sort of go deeper as we sort of proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Watsal. So let's start our proceedings on this topic. And I'll go to Thomas first to, put some definitions in place, starting with metaverse. What is the metaverse? Where is it now? Where is it going? So Thomas, your take on that.
Yeah, thank you, Shara. I think this is the most hard topic to explain, and depend where from the audience where they at Web3 or metaverse knowledge base. But the way I'm explaining, maybe I will say what is not metaverse. Maybe it's more easier. So if about metaverse, the metaverse I would explain as like our universe. The Big Bang happened back in 1990s with the internet. So since then it's evolving, it's growing bigger and bigger, and we now in a new stage, new era, where we transforming from Web 2 to Web 3, and hopefully that metaverse, the Web 3 will take it over, and all metaverse will be Web3 based, and it will be decentralized and open. Another thing would say, like I mentioned, there's no many metaverses, it's just one metaverse. Meta or Facebook is not building metaverse. It's impossible. Maybe what they're building is a galaxy, the most they can do. So that's my take on the metaverse.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. I want to go to Caroline and talk us through some use cases. What are brands doing in the metaverse? Where are they acquiring land, and what are they planning to do with that?
Yeah, so the use cases are really interesting. We're seeing, I think the early ones are ones that we would probably expect. So if you think that the early kind of metaverses tend to be game worlds, you know, that's the first ones that we're kind of seeing that have a lot of traction. And it makes sense, right? Because we're used to virtual worlds in a game, in a video game. And so that's the kind of logical first step of what we're seeing. But where it gets really interesting for me is effectively you're buying up parcels of land. So even if it's within a game metaverse, you're buying up a parcel of land. So effectively you're buying a little square of pixels or a little rectangle of pixels with certain coordinates. And I was reading recently that where it comes down to coordinates, people are trying to pay for coordinates that are easy to remember. So something like 50-50 coordinates is going for like a much higher price because people are like, well, if we're all going to have to be teleporting into various parts of the metaverse, what is the address going to be? How do we get there? Is it going to be that I'm going to go into a metaverse like the Sandbox or into Decentraland, and effectively the address that I give, like the equivalent of Google, would be I want to go to 50-50. and so we're starting to see people kind of coming up with original ways of thinking, well, how do I choose where in a particular metaverse am I going to buy my pixels by coordinates? And then we're obviously starting to see metaverses used for outside of gaming, things around gambling. You know, there's a big thing around sort of esports and betting, huge entertainment complexes. And then effectively, I mean, because the metaverse allows us to do pretty much everything that we would do in the real world, we're going to start seeing a lot more storefronts. So it's really, I think the easiest way for people to think about it is if we had the first evolution, which was the internet, where you could have a website as your storefront, what does the 3D version of that look like, and how do we interact with it? How do we move between them? How do we discover them? I think this is where things start to get really interesting.
Yeah, great. I'm going to go to Alex. Alex, you hold a lot of webinars, I think three per week. So what are you hearing in these webinars with respect to real estate? What are the top 3 conversations in this space?
Oh yeah, actually I organize in various topics of the metaverse, from the innovation, Web3, application and investing, and also inviting innovators to how they innovating in the metaverse space. So by doing that, actually, I have communicated with a lot of the global leaders in metaverse, and then I'm looking at what the progress is going on. And then I originally from South Korea, so metaverse. I'm not sure whether you heard about the news. The metaverse was really boom, because nearly everyone know about the terminology of metaverse. Maybe not the exact terminology, but they know about the metaverse in all South Koreans in last year, because a lot of media they focused on. And from the time actually that I started my webinar series 1 year ago, and then I'm looking at what the trend. And then initially I initiate my webinar, actually not many people are interested in, especially in the Western part, US and European countries, even the expert. And then getting more attention, and then a lot of people are joining. Now there are a lot of the people, I think that nearly all IT and like digital, like technology related professionals mention about the metaverse. It's a big difference. And I'm not definitely say that is the way is a metaverse is moving from the like a specific region and specific country like a Meta or the Microsoft to the all of the industry. So that's I have it. And then also another thing is the metaverse actually the rebuild, like revive the like interest in blockchain and Web3 and digital asset. You may know about the blockchain. There's a lot of the boom, starting from the Bitcoin and the ICO. You may heard about it. I was involved like in that area actively. I also developed a lot of the coins, the wallet, and the blockchain technology. But it's something that there's a fluctuation, and then its attention is fade out, and then suddenly now it's a Web3. You know that I had a talk with someone, an expert in the blockchain space. Actually, there was like IC or something, and there's all the price is down, and then they hesitate to talk about his expertise in like cryptocurrencies and Web3. Now they boasting that, oh, I was original member of the Web3, you know that I'm working in this field, right? It's a big difference. So this kind of difference can be happened by this metaverse. So this is a really fantastic event. And then I sort of like I'm expecting that the metaverse will be like, I think that the everyday life will be changes in the future. So the today's topic like a lending of the like selling the land or the transaction of the land with the everyday life you have in like in the real life real estate like sales or the transactions will happen.
Yeah. Thank you for your perspective, Alex. May I come to you, Nova? I think e-commerce is going to dovetail nicely in the metaverse realm, right? That's how you will monetize, and that's how brands will, begin to get some returns. So what is your take on how e-commerce has a role in the metaverse? Nova, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an exciting time for e-commerce. I'm still one of those individuals that prefer to shop in person than online. And a lot of it is just due to the experience, the lack of experience that you get when you are shopping online. And the scrolling and clicking, I mean, we've been doing that for how many decades now? And so just to see the innovation of these three-dimensional experiences and bringing in technology that exists already. When you think of touring a home, there's some incredible video tours that exist right now, in the real estate space, in the architectural space, and interior design space. And so now you can bring that into the e-commerce space and have that live in the metaverse, where you are walking through this three-dimensional store and you're looking all around you and you're being greeted with a concierge. And what's so great about the e-commerce, the new way that we're going to do e-commerce, is that you can create digital twins of your product, or you can create exclusive experiences that don't exist and would never exist in the physical space. So now you have the opportunity of creating new revenue streams as a brand. And that's just attached to the products. But now think about experiences. Think about how American Express had brought in this American Express Black Card with rewards and incentives. And now you tie that into the e-commerce and the digital commerce of the metaverse, where you can purchase access to rewards and experiences as part of your e-commerce experience. And so to be able to finally have community around shopping online, which you have in the real world, to meet up with your girlfriend, to, again, we know a lot of times shopping is more of a psychological, therapeutic effect, right? So now you can bring that component into the metaverse, where instead of trying to share screens to figure out what you should buy, you and your girlfriend can walk into a store together and experience that shopping experience together. And then let's also talk about sustainability and how that's going to affect sustainability, where you can judge the demand of a product. You can do trend forecasting on products, and it could be anything. It can be consumables, it could be fashion, it could be real estate, it could be architectural designs. You can see what your consumer wants ahead of time, so you're not being wasteful in the materials or the energy that you're using to create something that the consumer doesn't want. So I feel, from experiences to additional revenue streams, to community engagement and building, to also sustainability, this is an opportunity for us to impact all of those areas with e-commerce in the metaverse.
Absolutely, very nicely put. And I'm a big believer that metaverse is going to help overall sustainability of the planet. If we look at the larger picture, and you will all agree in the room that a lot of the brands have almost 50% of unsold inventory every season, which they either liquidate, or even worse, it goes to the landfills. But now with the metaverse and the digital first approach, brands will first create, the digital versions, and you and I, the consumers, will choose what we want to wear. So we don't necessarily have to wear what the brands dish out to us, but we will henceforth have the ability to decide what we would like, and then perhaps they would manufacture, and so less wastage and better for the planet. Let me move on to Akina. And Akina, please put some sense into this conversation in terms of, I invest in virtual real estate. What do I get as proof of ownership? Where is it valid? Which court of law do I go to if I'm in trouble? Guide us through the regulations around this space, please.
So I know a lot of people's not going to like me for saying this, but the metaverse that we all envision or painting or wish that we have doesn't exist as of today. Okay, you will be investing in technologies that are glitchy. You try to log on and no one exists when you go there. You're by yourself. You know, it's not what you see a bunch of people hanging out. It doesn't exist. And when you're buying real estate in the metaverse world, you have to do it with a certain mentality. And this is the mentality, whether you are a small investor buying your own little apartment, or you are a business buying a big piece of land, trying to build a lounge that no one's going to show up because you're a big bank, or you're a real estate developer trying to build a mall, which you don't know who's going to fill up your space. It's number one, it's for marketing. So you spend $2 million US on it, you get all the PR in the world. Wow, you're cool, you're hip, you're in Decentraland sandbox, great. Be happy. Second thing, treat it as if it's R&D for you to understand where the technology is, how to play in it, what talents you do not have to make this the way you want it to exist, what it needs to be before you invest again. These are very critical. And I'm telling you from a perspective, from an investment perspective of a user, I'm a gamer. I know I don't look like it, but I play at least 2-3 hours a day on a game. So, and I have a community and all that stuff. I don't look that cool, but I am pretty cool. So, and it's, if you treat it as a way of, like, you know, I have a friend who bought a piece of land in a new startup called Mad World's not out yet. And she, you know, like it cost a couple of ETH, I believe. She has a perfect mentality. She said, I don't know how to build this apartment. I'm gonna give it to my young teenager daughter and let her build it. It's gonna be her apartment. So for her, it's more R&D for her daughter to play and to learn about a new tech and a new world that she's gonna be grown up in the future when she graduates. She would know exactly what a metaverse is, and she know how to build an apartment, how to buy things and trade things and stuff like that. Great parent mentality. I love that attitude. I have people who bought it and think that it's going to go up and they're going to make lots of money. Oh, well, think again. Not with the current crypto world crashing down on you like this. And the cycle is going to be like that. So if you're going to make an investment in the virtual world, think very differently. It's not what you have in real life.
Great tips. Watson, you are the legal finance guy in the room. Enlighten us. Where is Metaverse going in terms of investing in it? Where are the returns? What's your take?
Yeah, so I mean, I appreciate Akina's like sharing, and I do feel that I have a few points of differentiation. One is that, you know, there are already, most lands on Sandbox and Decentraland are already sold. So there's already a market in terms of holders. I think the bigger question now comes in terms of how is the demand cycle coming up, right? Now, demand generally goes with use cases, which is what the question I think, Sharad, you mentioned. So other than e-commerce, which I think is the low-hanging fruit, right? There are other use cases such as advertising, brand promotions. You know, we know about Dubai. Like, I know, Sharad, you are based in Dubai. DAMAC has invested $100 million in building a virtual city. And I think from what I've understood, they're essentially giving their users of the apartment that they're building an NFT experience in their metaverse. Nike has its own metaverse. The bigger challenge in my view right now is interoperability of metaverses, so that if I have, let's say, a Nike shoe in the Nikeverse, I should be able to wear it in Roblox or Minecraft. I think once we reach there, there'll be a more immersive real-time experience. Having said that, you know, I don't know if you guys are familiar, there's a recent company in the US called Parcel. They've just raised $4 million, including from Fifth Wall. Fifth Wall is one of the prominent Web2 US prop tech VCs. And what Parcel has really done is created an Amazon for virtual lands. So if you go to Parcel today, there are 6 metaverses that they have listed 51,000 parcels of land in. And you can actually buy whichever parcel you like. Now, why are they doing this? They're doing this because there is a demand. People just need to know how to buy these lands. With Ricasa, with what we're building, we're basically enabling you to be able to purchase a piece of the property without necessarily having to study it, researching it. You can actually buy the NFTs at a Ricasa level, and then we enable you to get into the metaverse, right? So we're like an ETF for the metaverse or a mutual fund. Like, why is it that people go to a mutual fund? Because they feel they haven't got the latitude and the alacrity to study what the underlying conditions are. But to segue from what sort of Akina said, I feel yes, there is nascency in terms of lands and use cases, but that's why there's an opportunity here, because when the metaverses will become saturated and prices will start going up, then again the demand cycle will increase and flipping will start. Now, in most NFT projects which are successful, they are based on community. The real community will be based on the NFTs that constitute these metaverses. If you really look at it, what is the metaverse? If you look at it from a digital real estate perspective, it's NFT, which goes in your wallet, right? It's no different from an art NFT. The difference is that if you have a sizable metaverse land, you can have a developer build something on it and bring their users to that. So some of the other use cases we can talk about are museums, our fashion shows. We all know this has already happened. Music concerts, stadiums are being built. The bigger opportunity will come when you can orchestrate the use case. And I'm going to give you a real life example in terms of how in the real world, valuation of land happens, right? Since you mentioned, Sharath, from a finance perspective. Now, typically, real estate holders and builders have a lot of contiguous land, large parcels, which are pretty much undeveloped for a large amount of time because they figure it out. So they hold on to that asset and then they work with zonal authorities and they try and get use cases around it, like a flyover, like a mall, like a shopping district, like a residential building, like a condo. And then the value of that land keeps going up. Now that's what happened with Snoopers. When Snoop Dogg bought land, the land around it got sold for $450,000. So the real play here will be, can you orchestrate the use case and which projects can you build on your metaverses that can actually enable monetization? So
Great.
with Ricasa, that's what we're focusing on. We're talking daily to about 50 plus projects, understanding what they're trying to do, seeing if there's monetization, and then acquiring them. So we are actually like a fund for real estate in the metaverse, and that's what we're raising capital for. I'm very happy to connect with people if they understand the vision and thesis of what we're building. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Vatsal. In the real world, when you're buying property, they say three things are important. One is location, two is location, and three is location. Does that apply in the virtual world? Who would like to answer that? Akina.
So if you ask Animoca brand, Yatsu, who invests in Sandbox and Decentraland, that's the concept they're selling you, right? That, it's like Manhattan. I remember the exact example. You want to be in Manhattan and not outskirt of Manhattan. So you want to buy next to the famous, like singer or artist or company and stuff like that. But then at the other flip side, this is technology. The metaverse is supposed to be, I like to explain it as for us to explore and to disrupt reality. That's what the metaverse is supposed to be. Why the hell are we still following the reality of restricted land and in centralized place where, only a 4 block square meter is worth hundreds of millions and everybody else is worth like $10? Why? This is technology. We can do whatever we want, we can build whatever we want, look whatever we want. And then there's one thing I do not get about the metaverse that really pisses me off. Like when you walk in the Sandbox or Decentraland, you have to walk in the hallway to get from one place to another. That's the most boring part of life. Why do we have to walk the damn hallway where there's nothing and nobody to get to one big gallery of arts to another? Skip it. I can zoom and fly. Oops, I'm in a big room to another room. So can we build without the formation and ideas of real estate? That's what metaverse is supposed to be. Should be fun, should be different, should be interactive and take away all the unsexy, time-wasting stuff about life. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, what I know.
That's an interesting perspective. And now I want to shift a little and talk about inclusivity in the metaverse. Metaverse is supposed to promote inclusivity. Alex, what are you hearing about inclusivity in your part of the world, especially in the United States? You're on mute, Alex. Alex, we cannot hear you.
Alex, unmute you.
Sorry about that. Okay. So what you mentioned about inclusive is the topic of the like responsible and sustainable metaverse development. It is a global initiative. Actually, the World Economic Forum recently started their initiative, like how the metaverse development should be inclusive, like diversity, all kind of like inclusive and then responsible, and then ethnic security, and every aspect we should consider. And also Meta also like allocate a lot of money to research for that. I was a part of the research. And then you mentioned about the inclusive means that how actually you can, for example, for our topic is the virtual land. And the one question actually that I talked with the Meta research team was that whether that you want to buy some land in the metaverse. And then by some reason, because everybody talk about metaverse, the value is coming from the community, right? And then the community members, maybe they are like, for example, they don't want to include you, right? Because of your some sex or your like ethnic reason, or you're poor, whatever reason. Then how you can actually control the situation, how you can build up that one. That'll be very, very important topic we should think about it. So now people are thinking about how actually to make that. That's why that we are talking about open metaverse, like completely like a DAO type, so no governance body. But even that situation that actually we cannot be completely DAO type. So we should think about whether that we should who actually decided to let you buy some land and let you include in your in the metaverse land space. So that's one maybe future, but we start now because we are building a new world. Because metaverse is my definition is world, right? It's the world we are living there, right, inside. So it is a very, very important topic. And then I mentioned that in the research that for example in the United States, I have lived a lot of the world, South Korea and Europe, and mostly in the United States. And then I mostly I like USA. Is the USA is not perfect, but I think that the one thing that I like is the founding fathers of the US is they started a very, very like a democratic system. It's much like more like a liberative system to build a community. So that's why that we are starting now the metaverse, but we need to think about developing a new world. So fundamental building block is very important. And one thing is the metaverse should be no like a differentiation, no discrimination, and that kind of stuff that we call like a responsible and sustainable metaverse development. We need to design it and starting from the start. That's why we need to think about it.
Yeah, I'm going to now take this conversation a little bit into the gender gap discussion. I recently had a webinar on this subject, and one of the outcomes was that the disparity is too much between men and women in the metaverse in terms of technologies and them taking leadership positions. And there's an IMF study which is rather disturbing. It says at the current rate at which women are coming at par with men in the metaverse, at that rate, it will take 267 years for women to catch up. That is totally unacceptable. Akina Ho, you are ambassador of All Stars Women community. What are you doing, in your day-to-day life to change all this and make a difference?
Wow, thank you for asking that question, because I really wanted to talk about this. My life changed because of you. The first Metaverse webinar I joined, and then I met Layla, which is the founder of All Star NFT Club and DAO. And then she's only 19 years old. Her goal was to build a community to support men and men who supports women, and to be in the Web3 space. At 19 years old, I was still partying at 19. So imagine my shock now, like, oh my God, I'm like totally not accomplished at all compared to this young lady. So I wanted to make it up. And then said, I want to contribute and help as many women and men to be in the Web3 space. So I have been working overtime at night because I'm in Hong Kong time. So it's 9:30 p.m. So after I get off work, I work out of passion, love for All Star Women to recruit ambassador and built something I call it the head of business consultancy for our members. Because I noticed, because I'm in consultant, I'm in digital transformation innovation in the Web 2 space. So I built in the startups, I'm in the Silicon Valley, built a unicorn, you know, and I worked for conglomerates before. So I know what it takes to build a startup and how to formulate investment deck, because I'm also in the investment community for Great Eagle. And I'm in the hackathons. I know Fifth Wall really well because they came to ask us a couple of years ago to fund them. So we're trying to bridge the gap. And a lot of women are not in this space. So I'm really happy that in this panel, we have a pretty much 50-50 kind of crazy. I think you did that strategically, right, Sharad? So
actually,
which is great.
can I just come in? Leila was supposed to be on this panel, but she's right now on a plane from France to Dubai. So she excused herself, but there would have been more women intentionally on my panel today. I just want to bring that in.
Yeah. So I'm, you know, like and the more I talk to men and women, they feel like Web3 is more accepting, more welcoming, and more forgiving, that they don't know the stuff. Because we're all learning, and this is also the beginning, right? And I'm learning through interacting with everybody and talking to Nova about story building. And then that changes me, talking to Alex, the way the mindsets of investors are very different. You know, like a lot of people find me very cutthroat in what I say, you know, but I'm trying to be polite as much as possible. But I hope my personality shows that I'm very passionate about this, and then I want more people to be supportive, encouraging, and then be more forgiving, because we don't know a lot of stuff. So like I recently posted something on LinkedIn yesterday about like crypto kitties not being NFTs. And then this guy named Scott started telling me I was wrong. And through the process, well, I'm not totally wrong, I'm partially wrong, but I learned about mindset from a technical person. He's a technical guy, so he developers and stuff like that. So from his perspective, it is following the technical protocol. But from my perspective, from a business aspect, because like CryptoKitty was launched before ERC 721 was launched, which was the first protocol for standardizing NFTs. So like technically I'm not wrong, and technically he is right. So we're both right. So I just love that interaction. It's amazing that the different mindset, and then he was so nice about educating me and everybody else on my thread about this basic concept about, is CryptoKitty really an NFT or not? It was fun.
Yeah, I saw that conversation and it was very educative. And I think a lot of interesting conversations are happening on LinkedIn, right, in our space. So members of our audience, if you're not on LinkedIn, then that's the place where I think the center of gravity is shifting. So please join those conversations. I'll come to you, Vatsal, in just a minute. I'm taking one audience question, and that's from Annalisa. She's asking, why are there so few women in this space? And I'm going to have Caroline answer that, because she's put a list of amazing women building in the metaverse. So please help us answer that question. And then I'll come to you, Vatsal.
Yeah, so I see it a lot on Twitter, like, where are all the women in Web3? And so I took it upon myself to start compiling just even a short list. So I've added in the chat, because we do exist. And actually, but we tend to be within certain communities. So you see a lot of women in Web3 in the NFT space, coming from an art, fashion, that kind of commercial background. And then there are fewer of us in DeFi, but we do exist and we're growing, which is amazing to see. And then you see it across everything. You see it from security. You see it, if I look, I see that the CEO of Near Protocol, Marique, is a woman. We're starting to see some incredibly senior women come through. And I think that it's that whole thing of, you can't be what you can't see. But we are now starting to see some more visibility. We're starting to see some of the crypto publications actually reporting on who these women are. We're starting to see some big female VCs coming out, like Catherine Hahn, who came out of A16Z. And so I think the profile is rising, but what I would say is if there are any women in the audience, the list I've put up of the great communities is a really, really good starting point. And from there, you grow your network and you start to realize that actually there are a ton of us and we're building very, very cool things. And one thing I would say is the spirit of generosity amongst women and broader in Web3 is like nothing that I've come across since the very early days of tech. You know, like when I think back to kind of like the 90s, it has the same kind of energy and passion and generosity. So people should definitely get stuck in.
Absolutely. And I'll go to Watsal. He had his hand up.
Hi,
Hi,
thanks.
Shada, can I give us one comment?
Yeah, Alex, I'm coming to you after Watsal.
Yep.
Yeah, so, Sharad, another way of looking at inclusivity is also financial inclusivity. Can everyone participate? Why one of the motivations for me to build Ricasa, and really there was no motivation to get into a space where I'm already doing very well in my partnership at my law firm, is to actually illustrate that you can enter the metaverse irrespective of how much money you have. Now, in the real world, if I ask someone to go buy a land in say New York, it's impossible. You can buy an apartment maybe, but if I tell you that, look, you can right now be a digital landlord, which 5 years later will appreciate significantly. One thing that people haven't talked about on this panel is in 2021, forget the recent crash. The crash has affected everything. NASDAQ, it's affected the stock markets. If you forget the crypto crash, right? See what's going on. The sandbox lands that were purchased appreciated, some lands appreciated up to 700x times. So it really depends which land you had, where you were sitting. Now, in terms of the user experience will improve because with AR headsets becoming more modernized, you will have more ability to participate in the metaverse. And the other way that inclusivity is so important is because you can now protest in metaverse without identity. You can be anonymous with your digital twin and no one can attack you for having a view. So I see a lot of good use cases for the metaverse. Like you said, Sharad, from an environmental perspective as well, you don't have to burn things and throw stones. You can actually be peacefully protesting in the metaverse. That's another use case. In terms of financial inclusivity, if you have even like 1 or 2 ETH worth of cash, you can actually deploy that and buy NFTs, which I feel is far more inclusive than in the real world where you have landlords and you will no chance for you to become a real estate builder because you will never be able to afford that kind of land. So one of the real reasons for us to also push Ricasa is to actually allow inclusivity so that even if you have a small ticket size, you don't need to acquire the whole land and take risk, because we will create an asset portfolio for you, which will be revenue generating. So then even if you invest $1,000, you can still make a return. And I think these are the kind of use cases we need to talk about.
Yeah, I'm going to Alex for 1 minute and then to Nova.
Yeah, it's just one comment because look at our panelists. We are completely diversity and inclusive panels. So I like this kind of the event. Actually, I'm also sustainability ESG professional, and then I'm trying to host my webinar of this kind of type, try to make like inclusive and diversity, but it's very difficult. I thank you for your effort. I'm not sure whether you deliberate doing that, but this is the one example.
Deliberate,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nova. It's yours. Stage is yours.
Yeah, I just want to touch on a few topics that was shared from our last few speakers and talking about sustainability and the metaverse. And I know there's probably individuals in the room that are interested in investing in the metaverse. And I love how Akina mentioned that we are at the very early stages, and something that you want to keep in mind is that a majority of what you see now and what exists now will not be here or look anything like it looks today in about 3 years. And so when you're looking at projects, you absolutely want to look at what are the sustainable factors of those projects. People are curious and interested in the metaverse. So they'll come to a new world, they'll come to a new space because they're curious. The issue that builders are finding is, will they come back? Yeah. And when they are there, are they going to engage with each other? And so if you are coming into a space as an investor, think about that world and those builders. What are the factors that they're putting into place to want a user to come back? And how are they future-proofing their worlds or their assets? And if you are a builder or creator, that's something to keep in mind. How are you going to bring someone to come back? And how are you going to lay your roadmap where you're future-proofing your success and your relevance in 2 to 3 years, because the space is moving and evolving so quickly? And I just also want to touch on the issue of the gender gap. If the majority of builders know that it's this, you know, a lot of this technology has been around for a while. It was initially, you know, gaining momentum through gaming. Now we're seeing digital art, and it's continuing to move into access, as Vastil said, in terms of digital access to real estate that you can't get in the real world. And so what we need to pay attention to is, how is this going to, if the builders started with mainly men doing gaming applications, what's going to attract the women in the space? And can we, as creators, as builders, as investors, put in factors that will attract female builders, female creators? And there is still a financial resource gap. And so who's stepping up and offering funds specifically for women, and not just the funds, because there's an educational gap as well, and the education and the support for us as women. And we know All Stars Women is one. We know Angel Alliance is another. And so, but we need more men as well to create these resources, support, mentorship, and financial support, so more women can come in. Being interested is just the very first step, but then what's next?
Amazing take. Thank you, Nova, for that. Akina, do you want to come in for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Nova, for saying that. That is so, I know some of you guys might not like what she's saying or I'm saying, but we're actually telling you what's happening in the real world, right? Because I'm fundraising, and I'm also looking at a lot of debt, and there is not a lot of people want to invest in female entrepreneur. That is the truth, because if you look statistically, I heard from a lot of VCs, only 4% of all deals are women VCs. I mean, funded by, you know, VCs for women, right? 4%, that's like nothing, right? So it's getting better now, but still it's very low. And I think the concept is because we think differently. Women do think differently from men in the terms of building a business, right? So it's a little bit different. And we hope that, you know, women are stronger, and then they're willing to step up. And then especially men support us. I mean, I do feel, from my own experience, talking to some more established players in the market, they're not that friendly to me, you know? So, and I'm pretty a firecracker, right? So imagine if someone was more softer, sensible, you know, less experienced, or like more timid than me. My God, they were freaked out. So be kind to us. You know, we're, you know, a little bit, you know, soft too, you know. So, but Nova's correct. It's not easy in the space, and we want more. And I think a lot of more women are coming out. And thanks for the likes of, you know, All Star Women.
Absolutely. And just a note to the audience, it's been a very active chat window today, and we love that. If anybody wants to come on camera and ask a question, this is your chance. You can send me a message on chat, and I'm happy to elevate you as a panelist. You can be on camera and ask. You have to be a little bold though. So let me know if you want to be on camera, anybody from the audience. I'm going to go to Thomas. You've been a little quiet. What have been your takeaways thus far from what conversation we've had?
Yeah, thank you. I was listening all the time. Yes. So just going back few topics, what you mentioned about, it was mentioned e-commerce a lot, and a lot of people think that's what's going to be next big thing. I agree with that, but it's still much needs to be done for that. And I would suggest to starting from, if we talk about Web3 and the Metaverse space, we need, I would call m-commerce. It's going to be different. It's a new way. It's going to change a lot of things, different experience. So I would call it m-commerce. And about m-commerce, it's like I mentioned, it's still too early, because, for example, if we take Decentraland on Sandbox, there is a lot of some shops going up, shops, art galleries, etc. But it's still early days. It's no footprint. It's very little users, and I believe those virtual worlds, which is already there or coming, the new ones, they still making their way or roadmap, what they're gonna be. It's all, a lot of them start as a gaming, but I don't think all of them will be gaming, because if you want to be financial or bank, it's gonna be different. And the last topic about the gap difference, gender difference, I don't know, from my experience, I believe the women are more taking this metaverse and Web3s. The man, from my connections, I see 70% in the space are women. And from what I see, and because the Web3 will be creative economy, the women are more creative than we are. So you will be in charge, and it's a good thing.
Yes, I think women are not only joining in this whole movement called the Metaverse, they are taking leadership positions. And I can give you some very quick real life examples. Like if you look at the participants list of today's webinar, there are more women in the room than men, and I'm sure about that. The other thing I can tell you is more women registered for this webinar today than men. I run a talk show called Meet the Metapreneur. It's a weekly fireside chat, 70% women, 30% men. So clearly women are driving this revolution in the metaverse, and I'm a big supporter of that. And I love the work they're doing in this domain. So hashtag women empowerment. Caroline Hughes, your last, let's just now do some closing remarks because we are 52 minutes into the webinar. So I'll go around the room, give you 2 minutes with your final takeaways, and over to Caroline.
Yeah, I think my final takeaways are, if you're just getting started in this space, like, don't be afraid, right? Just like start your little education process. And the best way to start is by actually spending time in the metaverses that exist right now. So you get a sense of where they're at in terms of development, in terms of what's there, in terms of what isn't there, right? I think to a couple of the points of the panelists, quite often you'll go into one of these metaverses and you'll be like, okay, where is everybody? What am I supposed to do here? Like, and you're trying to figure out, how do I even make my avatar move, right? And your avatar's bumping into like walls, and you're trying to get into a conference and you can't get into a conference, and it's frustrating. And I think what I would say to people is, you know, we are in such like early stages that we all have to have a lot of like grace and forgiveness for what's there, but also vision to see, okay, these are the people who have built the first version. Now, what can we envision for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 versions of this? And how do we actually make it the thing that we want it to be? So get stuck in, but don't be afraid if you're one of the only 3 people in there at the time that you're in there.
You're absolutely right. I actually hosted an event in the metaverse, not on Zoom like we are doing it today, but it was in the metaverse. And it took 15 minutes for people to figure out what was going on, you know, how to navigate, how to get to the stage, how to get to the NFT gallery that was created, and how to get to the cocktail lounge. So by that time, 60 minutes were over and we didn't make much progress. So to be fair to the metaverse, okay, let's put things in perspective. It took 25 years for the internet as we know it to reach where we are, right? 96 to today. We were on dial-up modems. We used to connect and disconnect, right? There was no content. It took forever to download. Fast forward to today, we watch movies on Netflix, on the internet. It took 25, 26 years to evolve. Metaverse just got started. So to be fair, it's work in progress. It's being built at the speed of thought, and we need to give it some time before we start getting too critical about whether it works or not. Ultimately, it's a no-brainer. Metaverse is the new internet. Whether you believe in it or not, it's an eventuality. And I think everybody on the panel agrees with that. Do you, panelists, agree with that?
Yes.
Right? And it's not the future, it's now. And the future is wow. The future is not now, future is wow. So amazing things are happening. I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs in this space, and they are all building some amazing business models. Amazing in all industries and in all geographies. My calls start with San Francisco and end with Melbourne. I'm doing 16, 18-hour shifts, and I mean it, right? Because it's so engaging. And I'm passionate about it, just like all of you. And we are always on. One day I did not post on LinkedIn and I got messages on my WhatsApp. Sharad, are you feeling okay? This is true, right? So we are all caught up in this. And I think we are all on a trip, and it's going to unfold as we go along. And there is money to be had, but look at the bigger picture, look at it from a long-term perspective, right? And it's all going to fall in place. So who should I go to now for your final comments? Alex, in 1 minute, please, if you can summarize your takeaways.
Oh, yes. I'd like to suggest one practical tip that relate to this topic. Whenever you think about investing in the real estate in the metaverse, you think about the challenges and opportunity. And the challenging means that, as Laura said, like a metaverse is based on technology. So technology have a limitation. So you need to, especially for the real estate sale is based on NFT. So NFT is representing your value. So you need to think about what is the functionality of the NFT and what is the limitation of NFT. So basically, that it's not, technology is not complete. So whatever you're representing is not actually you completely own your like real estate, whatever you get the NFT. So you need to know about it, and also you need to know about what exactly you have a right with this kind of ownership. So this is not the ownership that you have in the physical real estate. So you need to know about it, and also you need to know about the obligation. So obligation means that they are under regulation. For example, if you want to like a fractional ownership of the NFT, it will be under scrutiny of the your regulator, like a security law. So you need to know about it. But it will be a good opportunity because the metaverse is a new world, and new world means a new experience. So new experience, new opportunity, and new opportunity means make money, right? So think about that, the philosophy, and then practical tips, and then think about you get your own metaverse real estate today. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. Nova, final comments for the audience, some tips or advice you would like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say start with your interests and your areas of knowledge, and look for those in the space that are speaking about those, sharing articles, sharing insights, and find people you trust to help guide you. And there are many layers of where you can get involved. If you are someone who loves something tangible, then look at purchasing NFTs for physical objects. You can buy an NFT to a house. You can buy fractional ownership of real estate like timeshares, and then you can move into the digital world. If you don't like buying and investing on your own, where you're like, oh, I'm going to close my eyes and I hope I pick the right world, then you have opportunities like a REIT, as Vasa was sharing with us earlier. But then you also have an opportunity to purchase space within a physical building as well. So if you start with your interests, if you follow individuals that you trust, it's going to help you future-proof your investment if you're thinking about investing. In the real world, as Sharad had mentioned, this is the next iteration of the internet. And we use the internet as a tool to help us in the real world. The metaverse is just that next version, right? It's a tool to help us in the real world. It is the future of how we engage, socialize, how we will be entertained, and how we do commerce. And so with that, allow that to guide you in this new paradigm, in this journey. And it is an absolute opportunity for us to put humans first in our building, in our creations. And if you want to be an architect in the real world and you didn't have that opportunity, you can be an architect in the metaverse and build buildings that people can sell. So there's an array of opportunities for you to get involved. And I love bridging the gap. So please feel free to reach out to me at all. I'm on LinkedIn, Nova Lorraine. Happy to answer any further questions after the panel.
Yeah, what's all 1 minute closing remarks, and then Akina will close this webinar.
No, thanks, Sharad. I was actually just answering some of the Q&As that had come. I think I answered all of them. There were people waiting for some answers. I do like to multitask. So look, I'll give you a few pointers here, and this is for not just for my company, but for anyone. Number one, mobile phone penetration, smartphone penetration in the West is almost saturated. Tech companies launched the mobile phone not so that you could have a fancy device. They wanted to launch apps on it. It was always to get your attention. The new attention economy is getting diverted to the metaverse. It doesn't matter what we think. Apple, Amazon, Samsung, HTC, all the big brands are creating their own metaverses or buying lands in existing metaverses. So the idea is, yes, the metaverse is the frontier where most branding and advertising and user experience will happen. I do foresee a world where we will spend at least 2 or 3 hours a day in the virtual environment. And that's how this will sort of progress. And then eventually there could be use cases where if I purchase a digital clothing, right, because the digital clothing is actually higher priced than the physical clothing, I get the physical clothing free. I actually see that's where the world will go. And I'll tell you why. The reason NFTs, a Nike NFT shoe is more expensive than an actual a Nike shoe is because of one simple factor, which is psychology of humanity, exclusivity. Gone is the time when a Nike shoe was not available for everybody else, or a Balenciaga or a Gucci wasn't, which is why Gucci and Balenciaga owners are looking so seriously, because they realize that the new guys who want to buy these goods want the NFT of it because it's exclusive and it's recorded in your name. And I think that is what is going to drive community. So my suggestion is for anyone trying to build a company, build a real community. And at Recasa, that's what our plan is. Once we close our 2 million round, I will personally be on a 6-month global roadshow. I hope to meet all of you guys, because I will be building a real community, like a cult around me, my own friends who will believe in this vision, who will believe in financial inclusion, who will believe in being a participant or a stakeholder in the metaverse before it becomes out of your reach, just like every technology does. Every technology gets out of your reach if you don't get in early. And this is our chance.
Yeah, audience, be leaders, not followers. Akina, help us close this webinar, please.
I just wanted to remind us one thing: when we create or invest in or develop something, do not be restricted with what we know. If you guys go back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, there's a scene that he thought that 10 years, 20 years later, fax machine will be able to fax anywhere in the world in the mailbox, and you pick your fax up. That's what they think technology will evolve to in 20 years at that time. But where's fax machine now? I bet you a lot of us who are here don't even know what a fax machine is. So think of things that doesn't exist for you to develop something amazing in this space. Don't be restricted by reality. Please do not. That's it.
Absolutely. Amazing. On that note, I want to thank our audience who have invested their 16 minutes with us. Thank you, audience. I want to express my gratitude to you. Panelists, you've been wonderful. You are the stars of our show. What else can I say? Love you. And finally, just on a housekeeping note, the recording and a podcast of this webinar will be available tomorrow at onlywebinars.com. I do request our audience to keep checking into our website for new webinars. We have, I think, 3 or 4 already in the pipeline later this month and early July. We are discussing demystifying Web3 next, which is, another topic on its own. So stay tuned, stay safe, be good, and thank you for attending this webinar. All the best, and see you on the other side. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.